April, 8 years ago, I was in Houston, coming through on tour, and that's where my parents live. And my dad and mom sat me and Reed, who's now my husband and my bandmate, down to tell us that he had terminal cancer. And there wasn't a lot to be done. He would try chemo and a few things, but that would just maybe extend his life. It wouldn't save his life. For the next 4 months, I would go on the road and I would fly home every other weekend to care for my dad and be with my dad. And on July 31st, he passed away. And I remember in the last 36 hours of his life, I sat by him. He was in a coma. I prayed over him. I sang over him. I talked to him, just desperately hoping for even 10 seconds of a lucid moment where we could connect and I could say, Dad, I love you. I'm going to miss you. That didn't happen, but it's okay. I said those things before he went into his coma, but you're always kind of hoping for more time. It's interesting. We were with him when he took his last breath, and it's fascinating how in a moment's time and in one breath, he goes from being your dad to being the body. When I realized he was gone, we spent a few moments with him and my family crying, and then we called the funeral home, and these really kind men dressed in suits close to midnight came to our house to prepare the body and take it away. And I couldn't stay in the room when they were doing that because I couldn't handle it. And so I walked down. I grew up in this one-story long house. And I walked down to the opposite end of the house and sat down at the piano that I had grown up playing. And I started weeping, and I started playing these chords. Just in constant revolution, and it felt like that the notes were kind of giving space and breadth to the feelings that I couldn't articulate. And I remember my tears hitting the keys, and as the men were wheeling my dad behind me outside of the house to the carport, I remember not being able to look away, and it wasn't the last image of my dad I wanted to remember. And then strangely, this song popped into my head, and it was a song I'd grown up singing as a little girl, and it was, I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Yeah, exactly. Great. And it was funny, and it was curious, and I thought to myself, where is joy? Where is joy in the midst of deep grief? And for the first time in my life, I was 26, I started to realize that grief is not the opposite of joy. Brené Brown says that fear is the opposite of joy, which is a whole nother talk, but also true. And I realized that joy isn't just happiness, like a bright, smiley face, but it's complex and it's nuanced, and we can have it continually alongside what feels like really hard feelings. And that joy is ultimately the deep peace of knowing that we have a Savior who redeems, who at the end wipes every tear, for death has no sting. And I didn't know how to articulate it. And sometimes as songwriters, and those of you who write songs in the audience will understand this for sure, it feels like songs occasionally are given to us, that they come straight to our brain from above and come flowing out our mouth and our hands. And the song is written in the length of the song. And there's other songs that we labor over, and it takes 6 months to a year to finish. But joy, I should say that I rewrote in the moment that it came out. And I think what's interesting is that it's exactly what I needed. And I didn't realize it, but in that moment, God was profoundly meeting me through melody and song. And so I love to play for you kind of an abridged version, since we're short on time, of the song, Joy. I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart, down in my heart. I've got the joy, 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 joy down attendeth my way when sorrows like sea billows roll. Whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. What I love about sound and melody and music, God not only authored it and invented every note that we can play and sing, but what I love about music in particular is that it seems to be one of the only mediums that accesses our cerebral, our minds, our emotions, our emotional, our spiritual, our physical bodies feel compelled to move or sway. And it's also communal. It's something we share and can do together. And I think what's powerful about music is that God can use it to stretch and reach into the parts of our physical being, our minds and our hearts when we're struggling with something, and it might feel incongruent to what we know and what we feel. So I knew at the time that my dad was no longer in pain, and so I could experience joy and peace knowing that he was in a new body and had new life. But I was also the saddest I'd ever been in my life. I was profoundly shocked when he died, and I grieved for a really long time. But the music, that song came to me in that moment. I believe that God gave it to me to grieve with me, to minister to me, to remind me of his truth. And what's interesting is I ended up playing that song 5 to 6 nights a week on tour for a few years. And I would take myself back to that place and relive that experience, not because it was easy, but because I believed if I shared that experience, that it would help other people. It would serve my fellow human beings, because we all experience grief, we all experience loss, nobody's immune. And it's something that we wrestle with, and we wrestle with God's goodness when we're suffering and struggling with pain, and we need mediums to help us kind of work through that with that incongruence that we start to feel at times. And I'm so grateful for that song that I feel like was a gift. Obviously, there's several different mediums and several different emotions and experiences we can share through music, and I just kind of focused on one. But the truth is, music is still moving and working in my life in a powerful way, and I think that art does that. It gives us voice to the things that are hard to work out, that are nuanced and complex. And to be totally honest, I've been really wrestling this last year with lots of hard questions about theology and about God. I've had a lot of times where I have felt angry and confused and frustrated. And the moments where I still experience the most peace right now are when I'm playing, whether by myself or for others or with others. And I'm so grateful for that. And I think it's because, like, when notes are dissonant, but we're playing music, we can kind of work ourselves and turn it into a song and kind of understand it, and it turns into, and it takes us on a journey. So I'd love to take just the last minute to play a piece that I wrote called Stillness, because when we're wrestling and struggling, the one thing we can always do is be still and know that he is God. So this is Stillness.